So I want to turn to talking about the hearings, and the impeachment hearings are slogging on. I always want to remind people, I'm calling this segment Impeachment Sham Day 1035. It's important to understand the effort to take down President Trump began when he won the presidency in November 2016, and most certainly in earnest when he was sworn in January 2017. So the 1035 is the number of days that President Trump has been our president. And this is actually how long the impeachment effort has been ongoing. But in particular today, when what's happening in Washington, I want to hit, I have some clips with a very wonderful Matt, the producer. I want to ask him. And again, I said this the other day, but I'll say, I send him clips really late. Like I'm at my desk, last minute, at home, deciding what to cover, and get him clips, and he always has them ready. I'm so grateful for that. So, Matt the Wonderful, I want to actually play clip one. This is Devin Nunes' opening statement today, and it's a little bit long, and I cut it way back, but I wanted to hear what he's saying about how he sees this impeachment trial in the U.S. House, or this impeachment inquiry in the U.S. House. So this is Devin Nunes this morning in the U.S. House.
Thank the gentleman. As we learned last night, story time last night, we get story time first thing this morning. Ambassador Sondland, welcome. Glad you're here. Well, I'm really not glad you're here, but welcome to the fifth day of this circus. As I've noted before, the Democrats on this committee spent 3 years accusing President Trump of being a Russian agent. In March 2018, after a year-long investigation, Intelligence Committee Republicans issued a 240-page report describing in detail how the Russians meddled in the 2016 elections and making specific recommendations to improve our election security. Denouncing the report as a whitewash and accusing Republicans of subverting the investigation, the Democrats issued their own report, focusing on their now debunked conspiracy theory that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to hack the elections. Notably, the Democrats vowed at the time to present a further, quote, comprehensive report, unquote, after they finished their investigation into Trump's treasonous collusion with Russia. For some completely inexplicable reason, after the implosion of their Russia hoax, the Democrats failed to issue that comprehensive report. We're still waiting. This episode shows how the Democrats have exploited the Intelligence Committee for political purposes for 3 years, culminating in these impeachment hearings and their mania to attack the president. No conspiracy theory is too outlandish for the Democrats.
You know, I love that. And he went on, I'll tell you one thing he did after he went on, and I just couldn't, that was long enough clip to play for you, but part of what he did in there, he went forward and listed, this is, again, Devin Nunes in his opening statement today in the U.S. House and the impeachment inquiry, listed a bunch of different things that the Democrats have claimed about President Trump, just absurdity after absurdity, lie after lie, debunked, just ridiculously proven not just to be ridiculous, but false and absurd. So this is actually happening on national television, I have to say. Not many people are watching. Yesterday we talked about 4% of America is watching these impeachment hearings. But to the extent those who really care about America are tuned in, and maybe even people who kind of are on the side of the Democrats and kind of don't like President Trump, it's good for them to hear this, because what Devin Nunes is laying out is exactly what has happened. There has been a determined effort in the American left, the Democrat media mob, to take out President Trump since the day he won. But I want to go on to some things that happened today. So the gentleman you saw, Devin Nunes, was making his statement, and they went over and showed this Ambassador Sondland, who did testify today. Sondland is actually the U.S. ambassador to the EU. And so Sondland, was apparently, the Democrats thought, I mean, obviously, to be clear, the Democrats are calling these people because they think somehow something they will say will hurt President Trump. They wouldn't be calling them. The Democrats are not seeking truth. They're not trying to find out what really happened or what's fair to claim, what's fair to accuse Trump of. They are looking for anything they can to destroy the president and take him out. So Sondland's there testifying today, and obviously Democrats had to get something good out of him. What actually happened instead was that Sondland testified about a conversation he had with President Trump. And so now turning to my point from the first five, that President Trump is always on his game, always on top of things. President Trump was watching the impeachment hearing, portions of it at the White House, and then President Trump's walking out of the White House today to get on Air Force One to fly down. He's coming to Texas today because they're in Austin, Texas, because they're going to welcome a new Apple facility, I believe. That's why he's coming. So he, as he often does, his best press conferences ever are walking from the White House over to catch, I guess he catches Marine One, the helicopter, and then Air Force One. But in any case, he is walking out of the White House, and he often, as he does, President Trump stops and talks to reporters. So there was a clip of him talking to the reporters this morning, and this is clip 3. Matt, the wonderful producer, if we could play this of President Trump jubilantly reporting what Sondland testified this morning in the House impeachment inquiry. Here's President Trump.
I'm going to go very quickly, just a quick comment on what's going on in terms of testimony with Ambassador Sondland. And I just noticed one thing, and I would say that means it's all over. What do you want from Ukraine? He asks me, screaming, what do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories. This is Ambassador Sondland speaking to me. He just said, now he's talking about what my response. So he's going, what do you want? What do you want? I hear all these theories. What do you want, right? And now, here's my response that he just gave. Ready? You have the cameras rolling? I want nothing. That's what I want from Ukraine. That's what I said. I want nothing. I said it twice. So he goes, he asked me the question, what do you want? I keep hearing all these things. What do you want? He finally gets me. I don't know him very well. I have not spoken to him much. This is not a man I know well. Seems like a nice guy, though. But here's my response. Now, if you weren't fake news, you'd cover it properly. I say to the ambassador in response, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky, President Zelensky, to do the right thing. So here's my answer. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. Then he says, this is the final word from the President of the United States. I want nothing.
That clip is why so many Americans appreciate and support and stand up for President Trump. He is being, or the Democrats are attempting to railroad him, to frame him, to falsely accuse him, to use his word, to lynch him. The Democrats are going after President Trump, who has, and he knows he has done, nothing wrong. So he takes the opportunity when the press is all standing there and they want to yell questions at him and accusations. He takes the opportunity to point out to America, because many people cannot stand to tune into the impeachment inquiry, but they will listen to a press conference by President Trump. So to be clear what he's saying, Sondland, who was called because the Democrats thought he would help them in this impeachment inquiry, Sondland testified today that when he directly said to President Trump, what is it you want? What do you want from the Ukrainians? That Trump said, nothing. I don't want anything. I don't want a quid pro quo. So this is, and again, Sondland was really strong today. Sondland is just, he doesn't have an axe to grind. In fact, one of the clips, I couldn't give you even the whole press conference this morning from President Trump that you just saw a little segment there. But he even mentioned there, this guy Sondland wasn't even a Trump supporter in the primary. He said he supported other candidates in the past, and then he finally got on board with us. So he doesn't even know Sondland. They don't have some personal, long-standing relationship. Sondland is not like, in Trump camp no matter what. But President Trump takes on the press, takes on the media, takes on the Democrats, and talks to the American people. The same reason he uses Twitter is the same reason he does these fabulous press conferences walking out of the White House, because the media is there. They don't ever any longer have the opportunity like they used to sit in that press room inside the White House and hassle the president to death or the national spokesperson. So they get these opportunities as he's walking from the White House to Marine One. So that was one update from today's hearing. And so just to be clear now, Sondland is saying There was no quid pro quo. I asked Trump what he wanted. He said nothing. There also was testimony in this impeachment inquiry, both involving former State Department Special Envoy to the Ukraine, Kurt Volker, another person the Democrats called, both in private testimony then in public, thinking that they could somehow get something out of him to help him in their impeachment inquiry, claiming that President Trump demanded a quid pro quo, or now the term they're trying to use is bribery. But they're basically just trying to use language in the Constitution. Volker's testimony is that is correct. I was never involved in anything that I would consider to be bribery at all or extortion. He also asked, because this was asked in the open hearing in the House, referring to his previous testimony, it was closed, and he was asked, Mr. Zeldin asked you in the deposition that in no way, shape, or form in either readouts from the U.S. or Ukraine did you receive any indication whatsoever or anything that resembled a quid pro quo. Is that correct? Kurt Volker says, yes, that is correct. I was never involved in anything I consider bribery or extortion. Similarly, another witness the Democrats were counting on is the former National Security Council staffer, Tim Morrison, who also testified there's no bribery tied to military aid with the Ukraine, which is the entire basis for the Democrats' impeachment effort. One more thing happened this morning, or two more things I want to mention in the impeachment hearing as we close out today's. We must have at least, I guess, one segment dedicated to the impeachment as it rolls on. But you remember the name Vindman. We talked about him before. Member of the National Security Council, Ukrainian by birth, speaks Ukraine, is an American. He served in the American military. Member of the National Security Council. He was the one who has already acknowledged that he didn't agree with President Trump's policy relating to the Ukraine, didn't agree with his policy, didn't like it very much. So he went around, and the president, he actually spoke to Ukrainian officials in his official capacity and basically said to them, you can ignore Rudy Giuliani, the president's counsel. You just don't pay attention to him, because he is one of the deep state thinkers who thinks, I'm a National Security Council, I run this country, I decide what is done, and I don't like the president's attitude toward the Ukraine, and I am the ruling class, I am the deep state, I will decide. He doesn't get to decide foreign policy. This is the mindset, not just of Vindman, but numerous other people. I want to play one more clip I have, and this is clip 2. And this is Vindman testifying, and there's 2 points I want to make about it, but these are in response to questions by Representative Devin Nunes, who is, of course, the Republican ranking member in that committee, Intelligence Committee, and the one who's opening statements every day. You should tune in for nothing else on the impeachment, if not Nunes' opening statements. This is clip 2, Matt, and this is again Lieutenant Colonel Vindman.
Mr. Vindman, you testified in your deposition that you did not know the whistleblower.
Ranking member, it's Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, please.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you testified in the deposition that you did not know who the whistleblower was, or is.
I do not know who the whistleblower is. That is.
Well, how is it possible for you to name these people and then out the whistleblower?
Per the advice of my counsel, I've been advised not to answer specific questions about members of the intelligence community.
Are you aware that this is the Intelligence Committee that's conducting an impeachment hearing?
Of course I am.
Wouldn't the appropriate place for you to come to testify would be the Intelligence Committee about someone within the intelligence community?
Ranking member, per the advice of my counsel and the instructions from the chairman, I've been advised not to provide any specifics on who I've spoken to inside the intelligence community.
Okay, first of all, I do respect the military, and I am grateful for people who serve, and I agree that people need to be referred to by the rank they have earned, generally speaking, in life. This guy, Vindman, has showed up into Congress, and I'm sorry to use this word, he has a prissy, arrogant attitude, a just holier than thou, self-righteous, smug attitude, and I thought that was rather inappropriate for him to interject in the middle of a hearing as Lieutenant Colonel, like correcting a member of Congress, a ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, tell him how you can only talk to me if you call me Lieutenant Colonel. But okay, so, maybe he's got a big thing about that, never wants to be recalled Mr. Vindman. But the other thing he's pointing out is he will not answer the questions that the Republican members of the House are asking related to who he's talked to. And I'm sorry, it could not possibly be true that he does not know the identity of the whistleblower. Anyone who pays attention to politics in the entire world knows the identity, to American politics, knows the identity of the whistleblower. Thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans, probably hundreds of thousands, could name the whistleblower. I've named him on my show before. But for him to say that his attitude there, he doesn't even know who he is, I'm going to call hogwash on that. And second is the attitude that says he, Vindman, can refuse to answer questions asked by the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee in an impeachment proceeding that all is centered around the complaint by this whistleblower, this mysterious, but everyone knows who it is, whistleblower who had no knowledge of anything related to the relationship between Trump and Zelensky, or at least related to that phone call between Trump and Zelensky. The entire impeachment got kicked off by this whistleblower filing his whistleblower super secret statement, acknowledging I wasn't there, I didn't hear a thing, but hearsay, I did hear that someone said that it wasn't conducted properly. Pretty much all the evidence that you're hearing in this impeachment inquiry is hearsay, secondhand, thirdhand. The two big problems of the testimony that the Democrats are presenting to America, one is simply that it's hearsay. It is I don't know, but so-and-so said so, and I kind of think that happened. I don't really know because I didn't hear, so it's hearsay. And the second enormous problem is the National Security Council, the State Department, the U.S. government is filled with too many people who think they actually run this country. They decide foreign policy, not this president. He does not have the right to do that. So you hear in Vindman's testimony that we just played, you hear that attitude that says, I don't have to tell in a hearing designed to lead to an impeachment, a vote to impeach the president, I don't have to tell you who I talked to. Because, and he said, this chairman, he's talking about Schiff. Schiff told me, I don't have to tell you who I talked to. Schiff being in the middle of it all, having met with the whistleblower having worked for Joe Biden, having worked with John Brennan, that whistleblower, all the conversation stirring up, concocting this impeachment inquiry, and this guy sits there, Vindman sits there in his, how dare you disrespect me, you must call me Lieutenant Colonel, but I don't have to show you any respect, Devin Nunes, Congressman Nunes. I don't have to tell you the answers to the questions that really go to the core to prove the complete false, the hypocrisy of this entire impeachment inquiry. One last clip I want to play before we get done with the impeachment for today, and that is actually, and I didn't even check with Matt the Wonderful if you got this clip off of Twitter, but this was a really great moment in the hearing also. This is, again, the ranking member, Devin Nunes, ranking member from California of the House Intelligence Committee, and he's going to be questioning, that is Sondland right there, who's the one who said, that Trump said, no, I don't want anything from the Ukraine. I don't want any quid pro quo. But this little exchange that was captured in Twitter by somebody between Nunes and Sondland, I want to have you hear this.
I want to get back to the facts of the matter here. And the thing that the Democrats have been unwilling to accept is that their operatives got campaign dirt from Ukrainians in the 2016 election. Now, they know it. They know it's true because we have financial records that show it. So the Democrats were heavily involved working with Ukrainians to dirty up the Trump campaign in 2016. So, Ambassador, I want to go through just a few of the incidents that we know. I know you may not know all about them. You may know about them now. But I want to walk through some of those examples of why the president may be very upset with Ukraine and think that they're a country that's out to get him, as I think both you've said that and Ambassador Volker have said that from that May 23rd meeting.
Did you catch that last part? 2 points from that, and then we'll close out the impeachment discussion for today. 1 point is Devin Nunes is saying, again, on open record, getting it in the record in the House proceedings, which then the Senate uses, and if it gets to a House impeachment vote, and it moves to the Senate for a trial and then possible removal, Devin Nunes is getting on the record Number one, everyone knows, including Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler, all of these people, these Democrats in the U.S. House, they know that evidence exists. Everyone's seen it. It's not hidden that the Ukrainians were working with the Democrat National Committee, working with Hillary to undermine President Trump during the 2016 election cycle. We've talked about this in the show before. We've talked about the meetings, the secret meetings they had in Washington. They were working with, the Ukrainian officials at the time, were working with the Hillary team, the Democrats, to undermine President Trump, or candidate Trump, in 2016. What Nunes went on to do in that little link there is we cut it off too long, but he went on to list the examples of Ukrainian officials said this, they posted this, they wrote blog posts, they wrote letters to the editor in major newspapers in America to undermine candidate Trump. So everyone knows all this, and this is great that Nunes got that on record. Second point, and then which is that Sondland was nodding along, even when Nunes said that, yes, Ambassador Sondland, you have testified, as had Volker testified, that Trump had every reason to believe the Ukrainians were working against him, which of course they were, because Trump is aware of the evidence that's now coming to light for the rest of us to see. This is a great record being created in the U.S. House on this Intelligence Committee. And I actually want to make two last quick points in this, and then we'll move to our next topic. My two last points are this. Still, patriots in this country should not capitulate, should not surrender to the idea that a House vote to impeach the president is a sure thing. I think Nancy Pelosi is getting more and more nervous about what she has allowed to happen. Impeachment, as they say, is not playing well in Peoria. Impeachment is not playing well in heartland America. And the more people pay attention to realize it was the Democrats all in bed with the Ukrainians and the Russians in 2016, and they're trying to use President Trump's relationship with the Ukraine and previously with Russia and the whole Mueller Russia collusion hoax. The Democrats look hypocritical, dishonest, nefarious, just plain slimy. And I know Nancy Pelosi, as I could not think of a single policy issue with which I agree with her, but she is an intelligent woman. She has survived in Washington for decades by being shrewd and political and discerning. She can see these impeachment hearings are going horribly for the Democrats. She can see that. My guess is she's trying to figure, is there a way for us to backpedal out of this? Some excuse, some basis to argue, well, maybe we'll just leave it up to the voters. But that leads me to my second point. The reason the Democrats, among all the other reasons I've laid out for you in numerous shows as we've been talking about the impeachment, the other reason the Democrats are just dead set in trying to move this impeachment forward is that they know perfectly well that President Trump will trounce the existing cast of characters. Whoever emerges from the Democrat presidential primary as their candidate for president, President Trump will defeat any of them. They know his popularity. They see it with his voters. They see it when, Joe Biden can't get 10 people to come, and Trump can fill a stadium even in Democrat states, even in Democrat majority states. So they're very, very nervous. And this is a very dangerous time in this country. I don't report on the impeachment with glee or with, any sense of, just kind of in any superficial or It's not a game. It's not a discussion to see who can win this political battle and can, maybe Republicans can emerge from this one. This is a very serious time in our country because President Trump ran when he said draining the swamp. I don't think there were very many Americans who realized how deep and dangerous and shark-filled the swamp in Washington is. And Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, figured out that when he talked about draining the swamp, he wasn't just talking about cutting back on the number of regulations emitting from every single agency in Washington and constantly strangling the American economy, American businesses. And he wasn't just talking about reducing spending. He was talking about pulling the roots out of the deep state's embedded power in Washington and having those roots exposed to the American people. This impeachment is exposing the Democrats and the deep state far more than it's hurting President Trump. Nancy Pelosi can see this. I think she's actually trying to think of a way to backpedal out of it. It may be too late, it may be impossible, but this is not going well for the Democrats.